They thought it was just another quiet morning. But when they found him, it wasn't the stillness of peace, it was the stillness of finality. No cries for help, no struggle. Just a lifeless man slumped forward in his recliner, the soft blue glow of the TV flickering across the room. His robe still open, his tea untouched. The kind of eerie silence that doesn't just whisper loss, it screams of something left unsaid, something missed. The coroner's report listed natural causes, but to those of us who've studied male health for decades, who've sat across from hundreds of aging men slowly unraveling, we recognize a different story. A silent epidemic that's quietly sweeping through men over 60. One that rarely makes headlines but claims vitality, masculinity, and independence with surgical precision. It's not a disease, it's neglect. Specifically, neglect of one of the most misunderstood aspects of aging male health self-pleasure. I'm Mohit Kara, a board-certified urologist and men's health specialist with over 40 years of experience working with aging men from Vietnam, veterans, to school teachers, from proud grandfathers to quiet loners. And I can tell you this: what many men give up in the name of discipline or dignity is often the very thing that sustains their life force. For decades, men have been told masturbation is shameful, it's childish, you're too old for that. But here's the truth no one is saying out loud, especially not in medical offices or polite dinner conversations. When you stop masturbating in older age, your body doesn't simply press pause. It begins to break down, silently, steadily, irreversibly. Your testosterone production plummets, your prostate becomes stagnant, your emotional resilience, your ability to process stress and maintain mental clarity begins to crumble. And what's most tragic, by the time you notice the symptoms, you're often years into the decline. You may think you're being strong, being mature, but in truth you're quietly sabotaging your own vitality. And you're not alone. Thousands of men do this every year, unaware that what society shamed them for in their youth is now essential for survival in their older age. This video is not about obsession. It's not about lust. It's about longevity. It's about protecting your heart, your hormones, your circulation, and yes, your identity as a man. Over the next few minutes, I'll walk you through the 4 little-known but very real consequences of giving up masturbation as you age. And more importantly, I'll show you how to reverse or prevent them with clear, simple, science-backed strategies that thousands of my patients have used to reclaim energy, restore function, and reignite their confidence. Stick with me until the end, because the 4th consequence, one that even most doctors are too uncomfortable to bring up, could silently triple your risk of prostate complications if left unaddressed. If you're watching this and you care about preserving your body, your independence, and your future, then I invite you to listen. Type 1 in the comments if you're with me, or 0 if you're skeptical. Either way, this is a conversation older men have long deserved, and it's time to have it without shame and with real answers. Let's start with the one I see most often in my clinic. A man in his late 60s or early 70s comes in. His eyes are clear, his posture proud, but something's wrong. "I don't know what happened," he says. "I used to be fine. Then almost overnight, nothing works. He hasn't had a spontaneous erection in months. For some, it's been over a year. And it's not the lack of intimacy that shakes them the most. It's the sudden loss of identity. One day they felt like themselves. The next, something inside just shut down. They never saw it coming, because no one warned them that giving up sexual activity could cause their sexual function to fade like a muscle that's never used. Here's the biological truth. Your penis is not just decorative. It's a vascular organ that relies on blood flow and oxygen delivery to stay alive. Without stimulation, especially after age 60, that blood flow slows. Tissues begin to stiffen, not in the good way, but in the way that leads to fibrosis, nerve degradation, and permanent erectile loss. This isn't speculation. This is anatomy. This is science. Picture your legs in a cast for 6 months. What happens? The muscles atrophy, the nerves weaken, the coordination fades. You may even forget how to walk. Now apply that to your most sensitive responsive organ and imagine what happens when it's neglected for years. You lose more than function. You lose connection with yourself, your partner, your confidence, your very sense of manhood. And what makes it worse is that this decline doesn't come with warning signs. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's quiet. Like a light dimming so slowly you don't notice until you're in the dark. I've had men sit across from me, veterans with tears in their eyes, teachers with trembling hands asking if it's too late to get it back. Some can. With intensive therapy, targeted lifestyle changes, and medical intervention, we've restored function. But others, they waited too long. They believed the lie that abstaining was noble. They thought they were preserving dignity. But what they were actually doing was trading vitality for silence. Let me be very clear. This is not about promoting addiction or obsession. It's about maintenance. It's about reminding your body that this function matters, that blood must flow, that nerves must fire, that hormones must circulate. Even once or twice a week can make a difference. It's not about quantity, it's about signaling life. Because when you stop using it, you don't just lose libido. You lose circulation. You lose testosterone. You lose drive. And in a man's later years, that loss is not symbolic, it's physiological. And it can be permanent. In the next section, I'll reveal the second consequence, how neglecting this private practice can affect not just your hormones, but your brain chemistry, leading to emotional instability, depression, and a loss of purpose. Yes, purpose. Because the male body is not designed to fade quietly. It's designed to evolve, to adapt, to remain alive with energy until the very end. But that only happens when we stop fearing shame and start embracing truth. So let's keep going. Earlier we explored the first silent consequence. The absence of sexual activity in later life can lead to a slow but irreversible collapse of erectile function. But the truth is that's only the beginning. For many men, the deeper, more devastating damage happens internally, beyond the surface, beyond the bedroom, affecting something foundational to masculine vitality hormones. Most men don't stop pleasuring themselves because they've lost interest in life. They stop because they think they're supposed to. Because somewhere along the line, society told them it was shameful, unnecessary, or undignified. But they still care deeply, not for vanity, not for conquest, but because when their vitality slips, it hits something sacred inside, their self-esteem, their relationships, their identity as men. And what makes this loss so tragic is that it was entirely preventable. Yes, preventable, not with medication, not with extreme regimens, but with consistency, not indulgence, attention. Because here's the hidden truth. While most men fear the loss of erections, they often overlook the more destructive long-term consequence, hormonal collapse. It rarely announces itself with a bang. Instead, it starts quietly. A man wakes up one day and doesn't feel quite like himself, but he can't explain why. He's slower to get out of bed. He skips his morning walk. His appetite changes. His enthusiasm dims. He starts sleeping more, laughing less. Conversations feel dull. Small frustrations feel heavier. His world seems grayer. And underneath it all, a vague but powerful sense of loss takes root. He knows something is wrong, but he doesn't know what. In my clinic, I've heard it all. Maybe it's just stress. Maybe I'm just getting older. Maybe it's these restless nights. But when we investigate, run the labs, check the patterns, we often discover a common thread: testosterone collapse. not just the natural decline that happens with aging, but an accelerated drop caused by the total absence of sexual activity. Here's what you're rarely told: masturbation is one of the only non-pharmaceutical tools older men have to naturally maintain testosterone levels. It's not about fantasy. It's not about lust. It's biology. Regular arousal and release trigger a cascade in the brain. Dopamine spikes, the hypothalamus activates, and your testes receive a message. Keep producing testosterone. Even in your 60s, even in your 70s, your body still responds. But if you go weeks or months without any sexual stimulation, the message changes. Your body thinks intimacy is no longer needed, so it slows down production. Then, slowly, other systems begin to follow. What does low testosterone look like? It's not just tiredness. It's not just low libido. It's the gradual disintegration of male identity. Focus vanishes. Memory dulls. Muscles shrink. Bones weaken. Fatigue becomes constant. Depression creeps in. The spark, the fire that once drove a man forward, begins to flicker. And perhaps most dangerously of all, cardiovascular risk increases. Low testosterone is directly linked to higher rates of heart attacks and strokes. I've seen it with my own eyes, men who were once vibrant and strong, reduced to shadows of who they used to be. Not because of illness, but because no one ever taught them that what they thought was self-control was actually slow self-destruction. I remember one patient vividly, a retired firefighter, once physically unstoppable. He came into my office one day with quiet eyes and trembling hands. After we reviewed his labs, I told him his testosterone had plummeted. He looked down and said, "Doc, I don't even recognize the man in the mirror anymore." There was no pride in his voice, no anger, just grief. Not the kind that comes from loss, but the kind that comes from realizing the loss could have been prevented. What he and so many others didn't realize is that this hormonal decline could have been slowed, even reversed, by one simple natural practice: respectful regular engagement with his own intimacy. Not as a habit of indulgence, but as an act of maintenance, an act of preservation. Because here's the harsh reality: most men don't learn until it's too late. Once testosterone crashes in older age, it can take years and thousands of dollars to bring it back, if it comes back at all. But you don't need a miracle. You just need awareness and consistent, healthy attention to the system that keeps your energy, your confidence, and your manhood alive. Now, while hormones are often invisible, the next consequence is something every man feels: a physical discomfort that builds quietly inside until it becomes impossible to ignore. It's not dramatic. It's not sudden. But it is real. A dull ache in the pelvis, a heavy sensation after sitting too long, an urge to urinate again and again, even when the bladder feels empty. Disrupted sleep. That annoying middle-of-the-night wake-up that creeps in like an unwelcome guest. It's easy to assume it's a bladder problem, or just part of getting older. But more often than not, it's something else: prostate congestion. The prostate isn't just a background organ. It's a living, working gland responsible for producing and storing seminal fluid. And that fluid, it's not designed to sit idle. When ejaculation stops, whether due to abstinence or neglect, that fluid builds up. It thickens, stagnates, pressure rises, inflammation creeps in. And before long, you start noticing changes. Weak urine flow, discomfort in the lower back, increased bathroom urgency, sleep interruptions, a growing sense that something isn't right. I've had dozens of patients walk into my office convinced they have bladder issues, only to discover the culprit is an irritated, inflamed prostate, a condition entirely preventable with regular ejaculation. Ignore it long enough and things escalate. Some men develop chronic prostatitis, a painful, hard-to-treat condition that affects daily life and relationships. Others end up requiring invasive procedures just to urinate normally again. And it's not just discomfort we're talking about. There's a more serious risk lurking beneath the surface. Studies, including a significant one from Harvard, have linked regular ejaculation with a reduced risk of prostate cancer. The theory is simple. When the prostate regularly flushes out old fluid, it reduces cellular stress and lowers the chance of abnormal growth. So, to review, your erections may fade from disuse. Your testosterone may collapse without stimulation. And your prostate may become congested, silently suffering in the shadows. All because of one misunderstood habit most men were told to abandon. But this doesn't have to be your story. In the next section, I'll take you even deeper into the emotional and psychological toll this decline takes. Because the next consequence affects your resilience, your motivation, and your sense of purpose. And it's one most men don't even realize is connected. Stay with me. What you learn next may not just save your health, it may restore your fire. We just uncovered how neglecting self-pleasure doesn't only hurt your hormonal balance, it also impacts your prostate in profound and sometimes painful ways. But what's even more damaging is the consequence that hides beneath the surface, the one that doesn't show up on a lab test, but reveals itself in your eyes, your mood, your spirit. This is where the decline turns inward, where it starts quietly stealing your sense of purpose. Let me be clear. When the prostate is regularly emptied, it helps flush out residual fluids and reduces the buildup of harmful substances. It's a cleansing mechanism, a natural system designed to stay in motion. But when that fluid is left to stagnate month after month, it becomes thicker, stickier. Inflammation sets in. The pressure builds. The body begins to rebel in subtle ways. One man I treated, a quiet gentleman in his late 60s, hadn't been sexually active in nearly 2 years. "Doc, I just don't feel the need anymore," he told me. He thought that chapter of life had closed. But when his PSA levels spiked unexpectedly, we ran further tests. The results were sobering. Significant congestion. A swollen, irritated prostate. We were suddenly discussing biopsy options, discussions that likely never would have happened had he maintained even occasional release. Let that sink in. A potentially life-altering procedure triggered not by disease, but by silence, by stillness, by neglect. This isn't about indulgence. It's not about promoting lust. It's about preventing avoidable suffering. The male body doesn't stop needing care after 60. In fact, it needs more attention, more respect, more understanding of how delicate certain systems become with age. Your prostate is among the most vulnerable organs in the aging male body. And when it's ignored, the consequences aren't just physical, they're emotional, existential. Yes, a congested prostate can cause real pain. Yes, it can lead to nightly bathroom trips and the humiliation of urgency. But there's a deeper cost, a cost that slowly dismantles the man from the inside out. It's what I call the silent identity collapse, and it's the most heartbreaking consequence I've witnessed in my 40 years of practice. This isn't something we measure with numbers. You won't see it on a blood panel, but every man who goes through it feels it in his bones. A fading spark, a dulling of the self, a quiet loss of something once vibrant. It happens so slowly, so subtly, most don't even recognize it. You stop masturbating not because you're sick or broken, but because you believe you don't need to anymore. You tell yourself, it's just age, it's natural. I'm not in a relationship, so why bother? But over time, that decision becomes more than just physical abstinence. It becomes emotional withdrawal. It becomes mental disengagement. And eventually it becomes spiritual isolation. I've sat across from men who tell me they feel hollow, not from illness, not from grief, but from a kind of quiet inner starvation. No intimacy, no closeness, not even with themselves. They've gone years without release, without contact, without connection. And it shows not in how they speak, but in how they shrink. Their eyes no longer light up. Their posture slumps. They avoid mirrors. Their voices trail off when you ask them how they're doing. It's not shame. It's not embarrassment. It's grief for a part of themselves they lost. Without even realizing they gave it away. And most men never talk about it, not because they don't feel it, but because they don't know how. Let's be clear, this isn't just about sex. This is about vitality, about feeling alive in your own skin, about staying connected to the source of your strength. When you completely give up self-pleasure, you sever one of the last biological pathways to joy, confidence, and emotional balance. Arousal, pleasure, release. These are not exclusive to youth. They are lifelong tools of well-being. And neurologically, they matter immensely. During self-pleasure, your brain releases dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins. These aren't just feel-good chemicals. They regulate your mood, reduce anxiety, help you sleep, reinforce emotional resilience. Without them, your body and mind lose balance. And that imbalance leads to depression, fatigue, loneliness, even cognitive decline. I've watched formerly vibrant, sociable men become shadows of their former selves, not because life hit them hard, but because they stopped engaging with a vital part of who they are, the part that made them feel connected, desired, even if only by themselves. They stopped showing up, stopped reaching out, stopped feeling anything. And the saddest part, they never made the connection between that quiet numbness and the simple act they stopped doing months or years ago. They thought it didn't matter, but it did. And by the time they realize the emotional damage is already well underway. Reversing this kind of decline takes more than a prescription. It takes self-compassion. Rebuilding the relationship with your own body. Remembering that you are still allowed, still meant to feel, to express, to awaken. Even in your later years, your biology is whispering, "I'm still here." It's not too late to listen, because this is the consequence that breaks my heart the most. Not because it's the most painful, but because it's the one that steals a man's dignity, and he doesn't even realize it's happening. But here's what I want every man to hear. It's not too late. It's never too late to come back to yourself. Never too late to reawaken the energy you thought was gone. To reignite your drive. To reconnect with what makes you feel alive. In the final section of this video, I'm going to walk you through the practical steps, real science-backed actions you can start today to restore what may have slipped away. This isn't about shame. This is about healing, about wholeness, about honoring the full spectrum of what makes you human. There's a belief that many older men carry. That intimacy, desire, pleasure, those are things you grow out of. That your body is supposed to go quiet, that it's noble to stop needing. But after 4 decades of working with men in their 60s, 70s, and beyond, I can tell you with certainty that belief is not only false, it's dangerous. You've now seen how stopping masturbation can trigger a slow collapse in sexual function, a dangerous hormonal decline, prostate inflammation and congestion, and a silent emotional erosion that slowly kills a man's joy and spirit. These are not small changes. They are life-altering, not because of age, but because of neglect. But here's the good news. It doesn't have to be this way. Your body still remembers how to feel, your mind still craves connection, and your health still depends on you showing up for yourself. You don't have to feel ashamed for choosing life over silence. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to take it seriously. Take it personally, because it is personal. If you're ready to reclaim your vitality, I'm with you. You're not alone, you're not broken, and you're not done. If you made it this far, type 1 in the comments to let me know you're still here, that you care, that you're still fighting for your health. And if you're unsure, that's okay too. Type 0 and tell me what you need. Either way, your voice matters. And you are not invisible. Let's finish this journey together.